cruising through town, and I'm headed to a quiet parking lot where I can kind of sit and focus a little bit better. It'll take me a few minutes to get there though, but I needed to do a video because I needed to just kind of talk out some things, and my health insurance decided I no longer needed my therapist. So I don't have her to talk to anymore. So I felt like I just needed to do a video so I could just get it all out, kind of maybe go back and watch it later and reflect on it, you know. I feel like that's a really good tool for self-reflection, is to just put yourself on video and then go back and, you know, rewatch it and listen to what you said and, you know, really hear yourself. So that's kind of what this is about. I'm going through something right now with someone very close to me, who doesn't feel as close to me as this person should. And it's been a lot of years of living this way. And while this is a very prominent thing going on in my life right now, it causes me to want to self-reflect, because I see in this relationship a lot of the same patterns that I have seen in my past relationships. And that's about how I get involved with people who really don't value me in their lives at all. All of my past relationships have started with the other person having this infatuation of me. You know, you get that initial infatuation about somebody and you can't let it go, and you want to get to know that person more, and maybe they show you a whole new kind of world that you never saw before or lived before, and it's exciting at first. And so it seems like, you know, in each relationship there was this sort of infatuation the other person had with me, and I, of course, would be totally flattered by that, because I never had a huge sense of self-worth when I was growing up or anything. So it's taken me a lot of years to develop that, and I'm finally starting to get there at 51 years of age. So, but anyway, I get into these relationships where it just doesn't seem like, after the infatuation has died off, which it always does, that person no longer seems to value me in their life. Like, it's almost like they could take me or leave me. It really doesn't matter to them. And so I find that because I somehow surround myself with people who are willing to take everything I have to give, but they don't really support me when I'm trying to build anything for myself. They don't really cheer me on. They don't give me words of encouragement. They don't even tell me they believe in me. I don't get any of that, you know. And yet I find myself trying to give those things to other people all the time, and hoping that somebody will give it back to me. And I have a few really good female friends. Some I've known for more than a decade, some are fairly new, and I love and appreciate them so much, because Well, I don't vent at them about anything that's bothering me in my life frequently. They are always down to listen when I do finally say something to them. And to have that kind of love and understanding and support, especially on an emotional level, is huge for me. And it is so lacking in my current relationship. And it's been that way for the entire time that I've been with this person, which has made the relationship for me incredibly lonely. And that's usually what ends up happening, is I don't feel seen or heard or understood by the other person. And then it dawns on me that, well, they're just not really interested in seeing, hearing, or really knowing me or understanding me, because, then it's not all about them and their comfort and their happiness and what they want. And so I find myself with a lot of very selfish people like that I end up in close personal relationships with. And I was raised in that sort of a home too, where, maybe material things were provided, but emotional and mental support was not. And so the people that I have gotten involved with, when they're in that infatuation stage, they're pretending to me like they're going to fill those voids that were so lacking for me. They're acting like they're gonna put me, as their number one, like I'm their person or something like that. But when the tables are turned and it's really time to put your money where your mouth is, that's not there. And I do a lot of work to try to build something. Like my last ex, we were working for the same company, and I developed, and with the go-ahead and approval of the president of the company, I developed a position for the both of us to be able to move out of state and work from home remotely, long before remote work was really a thing. This was in the very early 2000s. So, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And that person took that position and just walked away from me. And like I was nothing. And I had put in 4.5 years and did all the work. And I'm finding myself in that position again, where I have started a business in 23. I learned to do a specific style of painting called acrylic pouring, and I love it. And a lot of people that I interact with love it and are interested in purchasing the things that I make. So I turned it into a business where it takes a lot of time. Sorry, I'm crossing an intersection. I'm almost to the parking lot. It takes a lot of time to put together the product, and I'm always developing new lines, trying to see what sells, because again, I just started this business in 23, so I'm sort of market testing a lot of things all at once and trying to see what works and what doesn't. And we go to a lot of vendor in-person outdoor events, some of them indoor festivals and things like that. And we're just starting to do that this year. So it all takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of promo, and it takes a lot of advertising, and I do all of that by myself. And this person that I'm with, my supposed to be partner, drives our truck and helps with the heavy lifting and sits with me at the events and is sort of like a backup in case I like need to take a quick break or something and we have a customer that needs to be rung up or anything like that. But everything else I do. And yet he wants to take 50% of the credit for anything happening with the business. And yet there are so many other things in our relationship that are just lacking. And again, he's very emotionally closed off, so there's not a lot of emotional support or any other kind of support from this person. And that makes it really hard on me because I'm doing everything alone and I should have a partner who's carrying equal weight if he wants to have, equal credit for any of the success of the business or how the business presents itself, how I present the business and the decisions that are made regarding all of that. For example, why am I always setting everything up and figuring everything out alone? And I can go and talk to him and I can, I'm at the parking lot. I can, get his input on things here and there, but the conversations are very short. The answers are very short. Very limited, and there's just not a lot of motivation from my supposed partner to help me figure things out. And so I keep using whatever tools I can to help make my job as easy as possible. For example, my daughter will hate this, but I use a lot of AI to do my online advertising, meaning I use it to develop the graphics because I suck at things like Canva and desktop publishing. I can type and write just about anything, but ask me to do graphics and things, forget it. I'm not good at that, and I have no problem admitting that. So I'm using whatever tools I possibly can to make my life as easy as possible. And I know my daughter will forgive me and understand. That's the way she is. So I have to say, I just don't understand what it is about me that keeps choosing people that are not for me. Like, they're not cheering me on, and they're not wanting to really help me succeed. They want to see me succeed, but they don't want to help me succeed, And that's the hard thing, but they want to take some of the credit for the success. Look at us. It's an us and a we thing now when it's all going good, right? And I just am having a really hard time, reconciling that in my life today. Like I said, I'm 51 years old, and I've gotten to a point where I'm learning my own self-worth. And I'm standing up for it a lot more, and damn the consequences, right? And that's kind of how I feel about it. I have survived so damn much. And the person that I'm with doesn't know trauma at all. Has never lived it. Ever. So, being somebody with CPTSD who's been through different kinds of trauma in my life, to not be able to have a partner that I can talk to that can even empathize with what I have experienced enough to know how to behave with me, how to handle me or treat me, is lonely, and it's frustrating, and it's gotten to the point after 10 plus years that I'm just enraged now. I just feel enraged, especially when I have to interact with him. I don't wish him any ill will or anything. I told him yesterday, it's hard for me to trust a person when things like my very survival are threatened. There's some financial aspects going on that I won't get into, but things that are unacceptable to me. And it's threatening, my very well-being and survival. And threatening everything I'm trying to build. And my partner, who is responsible for this, has done nothing to try to avert it. Financial advisors tried to warn. I tried to warn. He didn't want to listen. He wanted to do whatever he wanted to do. And on the one hand, I think to myself, okay, well, you worked for the same company for, 30 years. You've earned the right, to make your choices. But that would have made sense if you had stayed single. But you took in a destitute woman, single mother, who had nothing of material or monetary value to bring. I had my mind, and I had my ability to get shit done. But I didn't have, the thing that everybody loves, money, to bring to the table. And even his kids looked down on me for that, even though they were robbing their family blind. But I won't get into that either. I just feel like I have been living on the unfair side of the stick here for too long, and I have tolerated and had to live with and put up with so much hypocrisy and complacency, not just in this relationship, but in all of my relationships. There's not really an effort made to grow and evolve mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I always believed that if you're in a relationship with someone, your very first responsibility not only is to take care of your own self, to be able to do the things that you need to do in order to be able to give your best self to that person that you can in that moment. But you also need to look out for the other person and make sure that they are getting what they need out of the relationship, out of life. Are their needs being met? Is there anything they need to talk about? Is there anything in the relationship that's been neglected that needs attention? I think about stuff like this all the time. My brain doesn't quit. When I'm not only always thinking about business, but in my business, I'm also thinking about all kinds of things, like all of my relationships and, just a million things at once. And when I can't even get the simplest points across and get them accepted so that that person starts treating me better and we start growing better together, at some point I just have to walk away. And so I keep finding myself in this position where I'm always in these relationships that are so unfulfilling for me and one-sided, where the other person benefits and benefits and benefits somehow from me. But when I tell that person what I need from them, it's treated like an inconvenience. It's just treated like an inconvenience. And I just am trying to figure out what it is about me that continues to find myself in that sort of predicament. I would love nothing more than to heal everything that's wrong in my current relationship and have this person magically all of a sudden get a clue. But I'm also a bit of a realist, and I don't see that happening. This person is 20 years older than me. So, we're talking about a person in his 70s that, people get to be a certain age and they are who they are and they just don't change. And my therapist taught me that. And it's very rare that you can really get a person to gain the clarity they need in order to change the things that they need to change in order to be able to show up in the way that you need them to in the relationship. So yeah, it's been 12 years. I thought when I got into this that I had hoped that I would be, I thought that I would be getting to have a whole new type of experience than I had for the first half of my life. And I was disappointed to find out that I basically walked into just a bad situation. And I had a lot of hope in the beginning. And, the marriage happened quickly. And I had hoped that things would improve and I could help him, understand certain things that he needed to understand, that I could see that he hadn't even ever thought of. And, I just wanted to help in a lot of ways, but I think that I have been seen as just overbearing by folks who would rather, not face things or own up to things, would rather sweep things under the rug. And I'm just not that kind of person. I've never had that luxury of being able to just sweep anything under the rug and not deal with it or not face it head on as it's coming. That's never been my luxury in life. But when I got into any of my relationships, it seems to me that they all sort of had that luxury where, they could just sort of get away with whatever. And they didn't have to answer for it. And they didn't have to answer really to anyone. And I feel like if you're in a relationship with someone, an intimate marriage or, just a committed relationship with someone, you have to answer to that person. Especially if you're living together, sharing finances and and you think you're trying to build a life with that person. You need to answer to each other, with integrity. And I'm not getting that in any of my relationships. And I don't know, it's going to take some reflection, but I don't really know what it is about me that keeps finding myself in that sort of a predicament. But it's disheartening. And I've gotten to a point where I've decided that if this relationship ends, and we no longer live together or anything, it will probably be my last intimate, monogamous relationship. And I have never lived alone. Never in my whole entire life have I ever lived alone, except for maybe about a month when I was 18. So, you know, that would be kind of a cool new experience as well. You know, because I've spent my entire life answering to other people, whether it was my child or a relative, another relative, or a significant other, a spouse, whatever. I have a boss. You know, there's always been somebody I got to answer to. And that has not served me well. Ever. Just like those same people always trying to tell me what I should or shouldn't do with my life. Anytime I ever listened to any of them and followed their advice, it didn't serve me well. And it's been a lesson. I don't know why I've had a hard time learning it, but it's about listening to my own gut, my intuition, because it always tells me when something's wrong. And again, when you don't have a sense of self-worth, or you don't even trust yourself, like I didn't for many years, you tend to follow the advice of people who really don't have your best interest at heart, especially if they're people that you're trying to get love and approval from. And in my current situation, I thought the person that I was with thought very highly of me in the beginning. And we didn't live together the first 6 months that we were married. But when I moved in, that all changed. The tone changed. And at first I just figured it was because, you know, we were going through an adjustment period of now living together. We were newly married. His kids lived there. They were grown, but they lived there. And so everybody was having to make adjustments, and it was tense. So that required patience. And God knows I tried. But there were things going on in the house, criminal things. And, you know, some things, you just can't keep quiet about. You can't just sit back and, well, I guess some people can. My partner seems to be able to just bury his head in the sand and pretend things aren't happening when they are. But I'm just not that way. Like I tried to say before, a few minutes ago, I'm just not that way. I can't do it. I don't believe in it. And I've said that from the very beginning of all of it. And I've been ousted from the family and ostracized and everything over it. And I have not really felt supported by the person who is responsible for doing that, for supporting me through that process. And that would have been my spouse. And you know, the head breadwinner of the household. So there was just a lot of things that could have been handled and weren't. And I have tried to be honest and open and to have integrity and to, talk my talk and walk my walk. And I just can't seem to get that same cooperation from my current situation or my past situations. Like there's a lot of talk, but there's not a lot of walk, not a lot of action. And I can't live that way. That's dragging me down in so many ways, and threatening my very survival. And so I had to get out of the house today and, take some time. And I really appreciate anybody that stayed to listen to this whole entire diatribe. But I know that there are people out there that can relate to the kind of healing process that I've gone through, where I've had to develop not only a sense of self-worth, but then an ability to stand up for that self-worth. And I'm not walking around trying to act like I'm hot shit or anything like that. You know, I'm just a person, and I'm just a learning being, you know, a speck of dust on this planet. And I'm just trying to live my life in peace, to find joy in it wherever I can. That's where my art comes in. And I just really wish, you know, that I had a person, my person. But I'm okay if I don't. If I'm not going to have my person, you know, then I don't want to be saddled with a person who isn't helpful in my journey of trying to evolve and grow as a human being, and to try to learn whatever it is I'm supposed to learn during the limited time that I'm on this planet. Because I firmly believe that's why we're here. Not only to do good things, but to also learn lessons in life. And if you're not open to that, then, you know, it's a waste in my book. It's just a waste. And it hurts me to watch other people that I have loved and cared about waste their lives because they refuse to wake up and get out of autopilot and to learn how to really experience life the way it's meant to be experienced. And I just wish that I could find that kindred spirit who gets that I could just spend all of my time with, you know, vibing with, growing with. Evolving with. I mean, it's just, I want that so badly. And I just can't ever seem to get it. Can't ever seem to get it. So, what's next for me, right? What's next for me? I'm at sort of a crossroads, right? I have to decide what to do with my marriage. I have to decide what to do with my business, my house, my first home that I've ever gotten to own. I own it outright. When I got married, he had a house already that I never had my name on in the 5 or 6 years that we lived there. Prior to that, when I was destitute, I was raising my kid in a makeshift townhouse built out of an old 2-story garage. Had a room on the top. It had been renovated into like a small makeshift townhouse. Didn't even have any heat. And so I went from that and moved in with my new husband. We lived there for 5 or 6, 7 years, something like that. And then he retired against the advice of his financial advisor and me, which meant we had to sell the house and find a place with no mortgage. So we ended up in Southern Nevada, where I live now. And I mean, I don't love it here. I don't hate it. I don't love it, though. I'm originally from San Diego, so I'm not unfamiliar with the desert. But I love the Pacific Northwest, and I miss it. And if I had it my way, I'd be living in Northern California. But maybe someday. You never know. I never thought I'd ever own a home in northern or in southern Nevada either. So you just never know what life is going to throw at you. So that's the thing, is like, so what's next for me? And I feel like I'm going to keep focusing on my business. I've got 2 books I'm working on. Well, one I'm actively working on, one I'm going to pick up again that I started many years ago. The first one I'm doing is a rewrite of a book that I self-published, 15 years ago, something like that. And I'm turning it into what it was. I'm turning it into now a biographical novel. And it's a story of my mother's life. Her dream was to always tell her story. And the first book I wrote didn't do that very much justice. And it should not, I don't think I should have published it as it was. Just because, like I said, it just didn't do her justice, and it didn't tell her story in a way that I was totally satisfied with. And so now that a lot of years have passed and I've done a lot of therapy and healing around the loss of my mother from such a young age, I felt like I could now do it in a way that she would have been happier with, and I know I'll be happier with. And it'll all be primarily from her perspective. And I'm still going to use, like I did in the first book, I used her journals. I'm still going to use some of the excerpts from her journals. It's just not going to be all her journals like it was before. Like the Go Ask Alice books were all about, that person's journal, and that's all you were reading was her diary. Well, that was kind of the same thing with the first version of this book that I wrote. And I may even give this book an entirely new title, different from the first one as well. But we'll see. The second one is just a fictional story that I started that was about a Native American girl in the 1800s who basically, loses her entire tribe to a slaughter from white men from that time in the United States. And it ends up being a beautiful love story, actually. And I think it can fit in the young adult, teenage readers genre. So I'm working on that. I'm working on book proposals to submit to publishers and literary agents to see if I can possibly get a deal on either of those books. That would be awesome. So between that and my art business, which is called Eisen Artworks, EISEN, Eisen Artworks, I'm pretty busy. And then, I briefly mentioned there were some financial issues that I'm dealing with. And so, I may have to get like another job doing something I may not want to do or feel like doing. So I just don't know if I even have time for that. I feel like I should really keep focusing on doing what I've been doing to build my business and working on the projects and just, continue on. Like I should not panic and veer off in some other direction and start focusing on another solution or another money pipeline or something. I mean, I feel like I should leave the responsibility to fix that problem to the person who is most responsible for doing that, and that I should carry on. And so I think that's what I'm going to do for now, unless circumstances change and I need to do something different. So again, I am incredibly grateful if you stuck around all this time to listen to me ramble and vent. I really needed to do that, and I will probably try to keep doing videos. Hopefully they won't always be all like this. I will talk about other things. I just had not really gotten around to putting up new content on the new vlog here on YouTube, and I wanted to get around to doing that, and I felt like this would be a great opportunity to do that, because I wanted to touch base with other people who are really struggling with being so motivated with working on their own personal growth, and just being so frustrated with being surrounded by those whose own choices and behaviors make that incredibly hard to do. I know that you're out there and you get it, and I'm really open to discussions with you guys about how you handle it every day and how you deal with it every day, especially when you know that you can't get yourself out of it right now and you just have to kind of keep plugging away every day. How do you cope? Leave it in the comments, message me, find me on social media. Let me know. And again, thank you so much for sticking around. I really, really appreciate you for doing so. And I hope that going forward, whatever you do, that you do it with integrity and you do it with your best interest at heart, because that's what I'm learning to do, is to keep my best interests at heart. And let's do it together, guys. Peace out.